There's a saying, I'm Persian and I'm of a Muslim heritage. And although I studied comparative religions, my personal field of interest was especially Persian Sufism, Islamic mysticism. And there's a beautiful anecdote or historical account that says that the Prophet and the saints used to speak every language. Whoever came to them, whether they came to them from, they needed to speak Swahili or Persian and I think these are very beautiful metaphors. It could be that they spoke every language. Why not? We all have that possibility. More importantly, it's meeting people where they're at, understanding the capacity of the human being or the organization who's sitting opposite you or besides you, and being able to meet them where they're at. However, we also need to balance that with knowing where they can potentially be at, where they are even potentially at, but may not realize it. And sometimes speak to the aspect of that human to whom most people do not speak.
You're listening to Catalyst Talks, conversations with change agents, outliers, superheroes, and truly conscious leaders modeling what it is to be an unstoppable force for good and truth in this world. What lit these catalysts on fire to do their work, and what nuggets of wisdom can they share with a world literally on fire? I'm your host, Stephanie Trager. I'm a transformational catalyst and life coach to maverick change agents in business, leadership, and life. On this podcast, I wear an eclectic mix of hats, including Earthkeeper, Wayfinder, Truth Teller, coach, lawyer, business, and impact strategist. My intention is holding space for higher purpose, peak wellness, soul mastery, and deeper impact so we can live in harmony with ourselves, each other, and nature. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. If you love it, please share and spread the word. We're on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. See the show notes on catalysttalks.com for links, and enjoy this episode. My guest today on Catalyst Talks podcast is Hoda Mohajerani, who has been described by those closest to her as a visionary leader, servant of love, critical thinker, and compassionate bullshit slayer. And I think that's why we're friends. Hoda has synthesized over 3 decades of experience in women's environmental and human rights advocacy, natural medicines, premium organic branding, fashion, and music production into a systems-based servant leadership to nurture and realize visions for people and planet. And we're going to drop all into how Hoda actualizes this through a company that she started in 2019, where she birthed Chakra Chai, a regenerative, mission-driven company rooted in the 5,000-year tradition of Ayurveda. I love their primary tagline, conscious nourishment for the conscious age, hints at the company's fundamental principles, which they are embodying, a brand from the beyond, why that matters, and how food can be a conscious vehicle of transformation and vehicle for transformation for the consciousness of all. So let's drop in. Listeners to the show, I always start with a really shallow question, and we're going to start with one today. So Hoda, welcome. Can you share with us who you are and what you're here to do?
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me on your show, on your podcast. So as far as shallow questions go, who am I and what am I here to do? I think you've hit me with the 2 greatest existential questions to ever face humanity at any point in our lives. And on my journey, I have come to realize that I am not whoever I thought I was, and I'm not who I think I am. And the journey is in discovering who the true self is, who is operating, and how can I get out of the way fast enough and long enough in order for that self to realize and implement what is required at this time during my lifetime through me. I can give you the details and the facts, material, historical, cultural, contextual, environmental data on who, quote unquote, I am. And I will if that is what you would like. But it's really irrelevant once we start getting into the deeper layers of our selfhood and questions around identity, because it all becomes futile, finite pieces of data that have nothing to do with the continuous primordial constant that has been, is, and will always be, and is operating through us. So, yes, I was born in Tehran. I'm Persian by birth. I grew up in London. I lived for 20 years in Vienna, Austria. I have traveled to many places around the world, although not as many as I would like to have traveled to. I have worked in human rights, women's rights, as you said, environmental advocacy in various degrees, from, standing on a street, asking people to sign petitions, to being in closed policymaking level meetings on democracy, ethnic migrations, et cetera. And, I've played rock and roll music. I've studied comparative religions. I've worked in fashion and organic premium cosmetics and foods. And really, I'm utterly unemployable. And I like it like that. And but nothing, all of my past, I understand now how my very rich and diverse past was the way that it was, in order to prepare me and provide me with the tools that I have, and which I'm developing through my company, Chakrachai. But, none of it could have prepared me for the shape and the magnitude and the subtleties and complexities of what this, seemingly on the surface, just food, beverage, lifestyle company or brand is actually a container for, and a vehicle for. So that is something that I'm discovering through the journey itself.
Well, that was, tantalizing. There's so many questions I have, and left turns and right turns, but what's right in front of us is this Chakrachai. What is it? And what is it, and how did it come into being?
So when you ask me questions like, what is this? For the sake of our listeners, please be patient with me, because I do understand and know what the correct or traditional answer to that is, that we're a regenerative, Ayurvedically based food and beverage company driven by our missions. However, that's when the question is asked, what is something? We're talking about the nature of a thing, not necessarily its legal structure or its external structure, right? And to understand the nature of what Chakrachai is, I think it would be a good moment to share how Chakrachai came to be and why we have our primary tagline, conscious nourishment for the conscious age. So I had and lost my only son, my only child, Arta, in 2017. And he was a baby. He was prematurely born, and he was only with us for 4 days on the earth. And I always say that in those 4 days, it was as if every day of those 4 days was for a decade of my life. And in 4 days, he, in a pure act of service, burned everything that was not true about me and my past and my ideas of selfhood and my ideas of what I want to do in this world and why. And he was and remains my greatest mystical teacher. Mm-hmm. In fact, his middle name is Mystic, so Arta Mystic. Needless to say, when he passed, I was a wreck, as all my layers of myself, the physiological, the endocrinal, the emotional, the psychological, the soul and the spirit, just through and through, the previous Hoda had died and the new Hoda was not yet born or hadn't arisen out of the ashes. And I've had a spiritual practice for many decades now, and almost exactly a year after his passing in January, I was on my own in my then home, which was a 550-year-old hand-carved stone building in the middle of the Austrian countryside in winter. It looked like and felt like a cloister, very much a hermitage. And I was by the fireplace, and I'd gone into child pose or prostration and very deep in meditation when suddenly Arta appeared to me, not with my naked physical eyes, but in an internal space as a presence. And he uttered the words, chakra chai. And I thought it's a wonderful, fanciful name. And obviously I knew what chakras are and I knew what chai is. But, I asked him, there was this silent to physical ears dialogue that took place between us. And I asked him, what is this and what am I to do with it? And verbatim, he said the words, if you wish, you're permitted to move on this, but you don't have to because I know you're exhausted. Now, I still didn't know what this is, right? And when I came out of that meditation, I spent several weeks looking at it, feeling into it. And what was absolutely apparent is that this was a gift from the beyond. And were I to accept it, it would no longer be, because it didn't come from me, and it wasn't something driven by my passion or my need to prove myself as a career woman or as a savior of the world or as any of these titles and identities that we give ourselves, no matter how noble, they're still somehow, our egos are still identified with them, right? So I knew this was something that was offered to me with no strings attached, take it or leave it, but I felt that if I take it, I would have to dedicate my life to be in service to its realization, whatever it is, right? And so a few weeks later, I went back into a state of meditation. I was really, to be honest with you, quite scared to go into this meditation and not have a repeat experience because, of course, I'm a hyper-vigilant, self-reflective human being. And I was thinking to myself, what if this was just the imaginings of a grieving mother, And I went back into meditation, and thankfully his beautiful presence returned to me, and I said, I accept. And when I said I accept, he unfurled the vision. And I was shown the connectivity of these different, not only sectors, but levels of our realities, right? Or levels of our reality that we're experiencing and functioning in, from the core, which is consciousness, and we'll come back to that, to the land, Mother Earth, regenerative farming, wisdom tradition practices, to the medicine, to community, to the, even the outlines of the logo, which then later on with our head of creative, we tried to hone in on this sort of foggy vision he had given me of that, and I came out of that, the charities and that it has to have a charitable aspect to it, or, mission-based aspect to it. And I came out of that meditation really overwhelmed. I mean, I was excited, but I was overwhelmed because the scope of it was so huge and seemingly insurmountable, certainly for one woman or one human on her own, that I immediately fell back into prostration and then started to beg Creator, please, if this wasn't a delusional moment in my history, if this is what your will is and what you would have me do, then please provide for me the humans and the resources and the guidance and the intelligence to be able to know what to do and do it at the right time, in the right way, or in the better time and in the better way. And from there on, one by one, truly through divine architecture, everybody was brought in who now comprise our core team. And so to your question, what is Chakra Chai? Chakra Chai was born out of and gifted out of heart-centered consciousness. Ironically, I wasn't conscious of the fact that I was in a state of heart-centered consciousness at the time when that experience took place between myself and Arta. But that is exactly where I was and where I was operating from, and the receptivity and that is endowed to us when we enter or operate from that space, right? The receptivity that we have because of the spaciousness of consciousness, because of the spaciousness of the heart, it allows for us to receive information that was hitherto inaccessible to us by our limited daily operating systems. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Chakra Chai is essentially an invitation to others, to our communities, to other businesses, to investors, to policymakers, to, the mother and the fireman and the yoga teacher, to come and join in this. We are already joined, right? To become more consciously joined in the collective unveiling through the individual unveiling, but the collective unveiling of our heart-centered consciousness. And the vehicle that we're doing it through is the vehicle of food and beverage and regenerative farming, right? We understand the first understanding of nourishment is food, right? It's our mother's milk. But actually, we were being nourished prior to that, right? And nourishment comes in so many forms, and there is no greater nourishment. I think there is no more primary reality than love and consciousness. And so Chakra Chai is an invitation to that.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about you and I resonate so much about you, Hoda, is your background, and like here knowing that there's a new way, and there are a handful of companies that are leading this new way and leaders who are really holding space for this awakened new multidimensional offering to the world. But you also come from a background, and I do too, of being in those rooms and being, let's just say, the UN, the human rights journey, in the dark side, because there is light and dark, right? You've been in the places where it's just, you have to fight to change it, or you step outside and you create something new. And that's what you are doing, right? And through the new, we inoculate, and it's going to be we can't change the old system, right? We have to create new systems and new ways of doing things. So because you have the background that you have, it really, I feel like, positions you in this, just because we're using identity words, it positions you in this place of really understanding what you're saying, right? It's not just a theoretical, we have to do this a new way. It's really knowing the old paradigm. So being the full embodiment of this new paradigm, do you find that people understand, they can understand, they can meet you there, or are you having to meet people where they are?
That's a really great question. There's a saying, I'm Persian and I'm of a Muslim heritage. And, although I studied comparative religions, my personal field of interest was especially Persian Sufism, or Islamic mysticism. And there's a beautiful anecdote or historical account that says that the prophet and the saints used to speak every language. Whoever came to them, whether they came to them from, they needed to speak Swahili or Persian or, and I think these are very beautiful metaphors. It could be that they spoke every language. Why not? We all have that possibility. More importantly, it's meeting people where they're at, understanding the capacity of the human being or the organization who's sitting opposite you or besides you, and being able to meet them where they're at. However, we also need to balance that with knowing where they can potentially be at, where they are even potentially at, but may not realize it. And sometimes speak to the aspect of that human to whom most people do not speak, right? Now, yes, we cannot use the same modes of thinking that gave rise to problems in order to solve them. Einstein said that. We have, nothing new has been said. The thing that I'm actually not reinventing the wheel here. These buzzwords that we use, like regenerative agriculture, they have been practicing, humans have been practicing, the First Nations, the Indians, the Chinese, the Persians, the Omanis, the Africans, everybody has been practicing a natural agricultural system for millennia, okay? Mm-hmm. We love to have buzzwords and to feel like we love our flags. We love this idea, and actually there's a fundamental historical issue behind it from pioneerism, right? We want to feel like we are the pioneers of something, which again goes back to that ego identification that we started off talking about, right? But we pioneered this. We haven't. We're talking about the essential fundamental principle of all of existence since before the time of time, until now, until beyond time. How does it manifest? How does it unfurl? What does it mean for us? One very easy way to cut through the crap, excuse my French, right, is simply, and I do not say this at all from a morbid place, right, but it's simply to ask ourselves, am I going to die or not? That understanding of death in terms of the end of, death is a natural phenomenon and everyone's trying to avoid it. And the minute you ask, the people who are trying to avoid it the most sometimes are the ones who are the gazillionaires, and everything that they do and the paradigms they set into place and the things that we all fall for, it's all rooted in this avoidance of this simple and inevitable fact that we're all going to die. And I think this isn't typically the kind of conversation you would have with somebody in a grocery store when they've come to buy a turmeric latte or chai, okay? But why not? And I don't always drop in at the deep end of death with people when we're doing a demo or a presentation or an event, but we do ask consideration questions that don't typically come out of a CPG company or brand. We say, do you find it difficult to release old resentments, right? Mm-hmm. No one was expecting to hear that. But if you're having a heart-to-heart and you're creating that safe space for them with the look in your eyes, with the tone in your voice, with the intention is where it all begins, with the intentionality. Like when I step into a grocery store or one of my team steps into a grocery store, is our intention to increase sales or is our intention to be of service to human beings? Which and the planet, which as a byproduct may also hopefully bring bread to our tables. If the intention is to be, Ram Dass said, die in service. That is how we need to navigate our time on this earth, but our institutions, whether it be the United Nations, our governments, the IRS, the FDA, the USDA, all of these, all the, pharmaceutical and medical institutions, they are there for control. They're not there for service. And
that's a really key point.
That realignment and reorientation, that when you finally cannot control the final frontier, right? Which is the death moment, where you shed this body, and the Sanskrit word for death actually means to drop the body, right? You just drop the cloak, you drop this disguise, and you move on. Because when you realize you can't control that, then you're like, okay, so what can I control? What is the meaning of my life here? What am I doing here? Is it going to... I don't even want to be remembered. It's not about being remembered as somebody who was in service. that ego identification with, oh, this person was really a saint because they were really in service, or they saved 10,000 trees, or it's not about that. It's simply about what is the more right thing to do. And you can't answer that unless you have a previous question, which is, why am I doing anything at all? So the why precedes the how, and certainly the what, you know. I don't know if that's what, did I go off on a tangent?
Why does it matter? We're all going to die. It's really interesting because so we are in this medium that I'm holding. We are holding for listeners. We are holding this for listeners. There's a curiosity, why does one share their listening capacity and receive? And what we're offering is something to receive. What you're saying is rich, probably as rich or richer than the beverage, the medicine, the alchemy that your products offer. But I could totally feel that it's all integrated. And what I'm feeling, it's interesting because I have my planned questions I was going to drop in with, and where I really feel wants to come and what's percolating is the sense that we want to grow and we want to drop and shed and we want to access this place that you're talking about. And it could be sometimes confusing for if it's a newer part of your journey, right? For a listener this might be a newer part of the journey, or if it's like way beyond in someone's journey. But I feel like we're doing this dance, and I've been doing this a lot lately, this dance of why and what, and I'm just a body. I'm just a soul in a body having this experience in nature with the cosmos. And I'm starting to feel what that is. Well, then why do I have to do anything? Because I'm here, and to be here with all these other humans in bodies, we've created this matrix and paradigm that we're all kind of playing with. And I really want to share this. Was bubbling up before. I'm recently seeing on all social media platforms this ad for the metaverse and videos of people saying, we are going here. This is the future. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no turning around now. And so this messaging and whatever the metaverse is, even if it has no charge, no positive or negative, it's just this thing that is like, everyone's like, we're going there. And then we're going to collude with that truth. Mm-hmm. And you're saying something different. We're going here. And so, that it's not just binary, right? But there's options and how to really speak. And I feel that it is from a more quantum place, right? That heart-centered quantum place. But how do we multiply this movement? For example, if your company, and forgetting ego and identity, but if Chakra Chai is a channel for that, was standing there with Metaverse and Chakra Chai, what would you say? What would you be saying?
I would be saying that we are not going anywhere. We are not going there, and we're not going to the other place that you said, I'm saying we're going here, they're saying we're going there. We think we're going somewhere. And that is the quintessential paradox. All the mystics of all the traditions have spoken in ecstatic paradoxes. Even Victor Hugo spoke an ecstatic paradox at the moment of his death. He said, I see a dark light. We are at our essence present, and some would argue ever present, beyond the time of no time, beyond the place of no place. There we are. And simultaneously, we get to experience this theater. And by theater, I don't mean that it's in jest. It is absolutely serious. There's levity, there's buoyancy, there's playfulness, but playfulness is not the same as jest. We get to witness this illusion that we're going somewhere and that we're doing something. And then when you begin to realize you are not doing, and it is difficult, it does become complex. I wake up in the morning. It's not easy. I wake up in the morning And the first thing is I need to check in and say, okay, I am here. Where would you like to direct me? How, please remove me so that the small me, so that you can do what needs to be done. And I can just be like, the pen in the hand, right? And a lot of people come with different techniques, right? Now we're going to use the technique of, manifesting through visual meditation, visualization. Or now we're going to use the technique of X number of days or weeks or years of ascetic practice, or, in order to attain something or other, right? People at the beginning of their spiritual journeys. In fact, people who are deeper, whatever that means, or have been on a spiritual journey longer, will usually tell you that it's a cliche for a reason. They know less and less. They see more and more, they know more and more, but they become less and less. So I was told, do the opposite. Start with this. Do the opposite of what you want to do. Literally, you want to eat an apple, eat an orange instead. Try that on for size. It can go all the way to, you want to attack this country, don't. It's being able to understand the nuances of how much of our daily decision making is being motivated by a delusional, insane desire. It's not motivated by the intentionality, pure intentionality of the heart to be in service to the divine and to creation. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we talked about this. What do your investors say about that?
Well, interestingly, they don't say much.
It works.
The interesting thing is, look, I bootstrapped this company until I had only $5.47 or 74 cents or something like that in my account. Okay. I had nothing. I was in California. COVID had hit. I'd run out of money. I didn't have a car. I had to move out of the apartment that I was renting at the time. The apartment landlord's agent didn't want to give me back the full deposit. In the midst of that, my team and I did a 3-week daily meditation. Religiously, every day we were doing a meditation. And literally on the last day of the meditation, a friend of mine had lent me her car, and another friend of mine owns a cafe, and she had said, whenever you need, just come and have coffee here. And on the last day of the meditation, I drive to the cafe, get a coffee, a charitable cup of coffee. And I saw an old lady who looks very beautiful. I paid her a compliment. She invited me over to dinner to somebody else's house. That person shared a story at the dinner table about a child that he had lost at birth. Right? The people around the dinner table who did not know, who knew him very well, had never heard the story and said, oh, you've never shared that with us before. Now imagine this is my first time at this person's home, sitting at the dinner table. And he said, yes, I'm actually rather baffled as to why I shared that story now. And I'm sitting next to him thinking, I'm not baffled at all. Your boy's been colluding with my boy.
Did you say this?
I didn't say that to him at the dinner table, but when we were at the fire pit later on in the evening, I said, I don't mean to be presumptuous. I hadn't even finished my sentence. And he said, no, please go ahead and be presumptuous. I said, but I feel that we've been brought together through divine architecture, and I would be very grateful if you would grant me the opportunity to share my business with you, my business vision. And he said, come tomorrow morning. The next morning I went there. We sat out on the grass in his garden. I opened my laptop. I showed him the pitch deck. And he said, okay, I'm going to invest in your business. The only thing that I'm going to change are the numbers, like the amount that I was asking for. And he raised it to make sure that it was the Tesla numbers, so that it had 3s, 6s, and 9s in there. Literally, that was what happened.
Wow.
And another story I'd like to, if I may, can I share another story with you?
Yeah.
So my mother and ancestry is incredibly real and vital and important. And my mother, God rest her soul, passed away this June. And after the Zach Bush interview, we have several investors interested in investing in Chakra Chai, right? And I think the interview was late May, and then my mother passed away in June. And so I put everything on hold. I wasn't frantically, when you said way earlier in the conversation, seeking investment, part of the transformation that's needed to take place within me in the redefinition of what it means to be a CEO is to not seek investment. Yeah, I'm desperate. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter. Now, don't get me wrong. Being important is not the same as not mattering in how I'm using it. Like, in the end, I'm going to be finished and dead. Chakra Chai in 100, 200, 1,000 years is going to be dead. The earth is going to, it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter if I eat a piece of bread and cheese at night, or if I eat caviar and sit on my yacht. We all sleep the same. We can only all eat a certain amount, So this idea of seeking out of a scarcity place, that somehow my doing is going to, anyhow. So I stopped that. I've been really working on that. Yeah. And it's truly, to all investors out there, it's not from a place of arrogance. Yeah. It's just from a place to know that if you and I are meant to be on this journey together, not all of the heavens and the earth can keep us apart. Yeah. And not all the things that I have to offer you as reasons why you should invest in Chakra Chai are going to bring you on board if it's not supposed to happen. Anyhow, so this one lady who's interested in investing in Chakra Chai, so she hasn't received the investor package from me, right? Out of the blue.
Don't worry.
We'd sent an email saying, my mother has passed, please be patient with me, right? She contacts me and says, your son contacted me. Arta came to me and told me to tell you that mom's, you're struggling with the loss of your mother. And keep moving into the light. Just keep staying in the light. She's an investor. Mm-hmm. Do I want to go, talking of meeting people where they're at, do I want to go to a cutthroat, traditional CPG person? I'm not ruling them out, but do I want to go to them and beg the suit? Please believe that there is something called love, there's something called the heart, there's something called consciousness, there's the most prolific, subtle, complex, intelligent organ that we have is the heart. Then it's the gut, then it's the brain, right? To operate from this place is not the same as wearing rose-tinted glasses and thinking if we all sit around singing Kumbaya, we're going to change the world. These two are not the same. Heart-centered consciousness and operating from that place is not the same as naivete. And the right humans who are on that journey, in that frequency, they'll get it and they'll be like, this is what I want to be a part of. Because as my co-founder loves to say, what are the outcomes that you're seeking? Mm-hmm. It's a very simple question. What outcomes do you want to see? What's the legacy you want to leave behind? What's the story that's going to be told? So, that's kind of how our investors are. And they're very successful people, That's what I mean.
What?
I said they're very successful people. It's not just like,
Yeah.
They're successful business people, but they're there internally.
So, you're modeling. This is modeling the possibility when we surrender. And I think, though, there's no faking it, though, right? It's a dance. It's a dance to catch that wave of true surrender to everything you're sharing and to trying to do it, because it's still, you're just doing something.
What? This is true surrender when it all comes tumbling.
We leave that for everybody to see. Conscious nourishment for conscious age.
There's no
faking it. There's no faking it, right? And it's so interesting because where we are in this conversation, there's no kind of going back to like linear questions about, so tell us about the consistency of, the root chakra.
although I can tell you that the consistency and mouthfeel of our products is by no means linear. It's very complex and creamy and delicious, and you should all try it.
Yeah, and we will be sharing links to where you can do that in the show notes. But so take me on a journey of one of the products, one of the gifts.
Well, the first product that we worked together with a most amazing Ayurvedic expert from the Gujarat who lived at the time in Oakland, actually, and formulating the medicinal complexes, which are proprietary, that we use in the Ayurvedic super drinks, elixir shots, if you will, which were our first range of products, to what are now called the truffles, which are these beautiful, delicious, sweet medicinal snacks. For want of a better word, they're actually little medicinal balls, but you can't call it that really, because of legislation. So functional food delights. The very first thing we created and formulated, and we were in R&D in its totality, we were still tweaking the formulas about 2.5 years in, but the very first one was for the heart chakra. And I've said, from love we were created, and from love we create. And it's truly, that is a certainty for me, that all of existence is here, all of being is here because of love. And so to begin from the heart seemed only fitting, also in terms of our product development. So we kind of started from the center and then went up and down, to the other chakras. And we formulated the Love Ayurvedic super drink, and it has Persian rose, which is, the flower of love. And it's also fantastic for releasing trapped grief. It has Arjuna, which is the Ayurvedic herb for the heart and has been shown in clinical studies to help cardiovascular health and palpitations. It has real Madagascan vanilla for comfort, and cardamom for grounding and helping to release chaga and reishi, medicinal mushrooms, holy basil, almond milk from biodynamic dry harvested almond farms, so as to not put any stress on the environment, and coconut, which is very cooling because you need cooling in the heart area according to Ayurveda. And I've had, we also, throughout our entire production process, from creating the medicinal complexes to the packaging, the whole time, we have different sonic frequencies that are being played and also spoken and sung by the employees on the products. And yes, this can actually be scaled. So it's, it is possible to be able to scale that and retain the intentionality. But the vibrations and the activation, the prana of these products is incredibly high. I have had myself and my team at every single event, at every single demo, there will be at least one, usually multiple people who will have one sip of the product or one bite of the product, begin to cry or begin to express very intense emotional responses.
Wow.
Because they're receptive that way. And this has literally happened without any prompting, without me saying this releases trapped grief to them. For example, they've said, I want to try the green one. The love chakra, the heart chakra color, Anahata, is green, right? So they try it and then they're in tears. So, that is always, it is so satisfying to witness that. And then, the charitable cause associated, because we support 7 different charitable causes, each correlating with one of the chakras. And we give from our top line revenue to each cause. which is a unique model because most people give a percentage of their net profits. We're like, we want to give to charity. Whether or not we make it, we want to give to charity. We have modeled it in such a way where it's feasible. And people resonate with that because like the heart chakra one is for nourishing our mothers and babies. So right now we're supporting Chrissy Turlington's charity, Every Mother Counts. And so a lot of people, in terms of meeting people where they're at, some people who haven't heard about Ayurveda, who haven't heard about the chakras, who may not even necessarily fall into the, economic bracket that would immediately be able to access this level and pricing and positioned, product positioning. They'll be like, oh my God, my grandmother had Alzheimer's. I want to support the cause for Alzheimer's and cherishing our elders. So then they take the insight one, the one for the third eye chakra, right? So it's beautiful because it allows essentially 7 different access points just from the charitable causes for different humans from different backgrounds to come into the conversation around, if they're coming in that way, the charity, which then takes them to the product, which then takes them to Ayurveda, which then takes them to the chakras, which then takes them to consciousness. So then that's kind of how we become that portal or threshold using this vehicle to usher more people in and invite more people into the deeper, more beautiful realms, Yeah.
So intentional. Everything's so intentional.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's also in the Bible, but I know for certain that it's in the Quran, when the divine intends for something to be, and this is not a gendered he, obviously, but the divine says be, and it is. So that intention, we intend for something to be. And I think that when we align our intentionality with the divine will or with Creator's intention, which is the highest, most loving, most beautiful, most gracious, most illuminating intention, right? Then everything just happens like this, right? And the ebbs and flows and the inclines and descents on the road, I think we end up welcoming them. We lose our aversion to it.
So with that, I wanted to ask, what's one mistake, if there's such a thing, in the indoctrination of what a mistake is, what might be one that you feel you experienced, if any?
In my life or in Chakra Chai alone?
Chakra Chai. Yeah. So on this journey, I don't mean mistake. I did something wrong.
No, mistake is fine.
Right? Like a mistake. A mistake.
A mistake.
Like 4 times we started this podcast.
Well, that's what it really originally means. It means to take something wrongly. Yeah. Not in the correct intended way. My greatest mistake, and I believe my greatest opportunity, still lies with its arms wide open to me, is to have in any way faltered in my trust.
That's beautiful, because the next question I was going to say was, or offering is, if you could, offer a transmission to the millions of hearts that are listening right now, and if the transmission that is most needed right now, I think you've given a lot. What would it be? What comes forth?
The force, God, the energy, the divine, the one who has brought into being this incomprehensible existence, right? Of all the multiverses, all the galaxies, the intricacies of a leaf, of an ant, of a ladybug, the communications of the dolphins, the oceans, the air, the beating of our hearts, the love we feel, everything. This is the highest order, the highest symbol of love. When you have a child that you love so much, you buy it that toy that it really, is the best one, and it'll love it so much. And that becomes your gesture, or you hold it so close. And that's your gesture of love. how great in intensity, immeasurable in intensity and purity is the love of Creator to create this, right? And to create us, to witness it, and then to return and to trust. God is good. Human beings are good. We are good. Clay is good. Earth is good. Love is good. We are the kings and the queens. We are the vice regents. We are those who are the stewards and the shepherds and the witnesses alone and between one another, mirroring to one another. There is so much abundance. There is so much love. There is so much unity. There is so much commonality. There's a beautiful verse, again from the Quran, that says, we created you as one and divided you into many that you may know one another. And interestingly, in philosophy, they say that the prerequisite to be able to love a thing is knowledge of that. So in effect, that verse means you can get to know one another so that you can get to love one another. It's all there. And I see absolutely no other sustainable way to be able to address the challenges and to the point of atrocities that we face in our world today, if we do not operate and come from that place of infinity, that limitless love, and let that inform our dietary decisions, our relational decisions, our ecological decisions, our political decisions, all of these decisions. Because if we just approach it from the outside, it'll be one bill passed and then it'll change again, right? Come from that place that is untainted and see with your own eyes, with the eyes of your heart, what happens. It's really, I mean, look, we got brought together.
I know. All right. Well, we are going to wrap up so that we can give you back your time. And I do want to just say this when we share with our guests who've been witness and receiving of this beautiful conversation, that you and I knew I needed to connect with you. And when we did, the second we got on a video call, we were like, we knew each other for thousands of years. And so that this homecoming is beautiful. And it's just part of the magic. So it's part of the magic that you've been talking about this time together. So thank you. Thank you
so much, Stephanie. Thank you for doing what you're doing and for being such a beautifully clear mirror and for having the courage to have these conversations and walk the path that you're walking and know that you're seen and you're loved and you're very, very much cherished and respected. And it's a wonder and a pleasure to reunite with you in this earth, in this timeline. Absolutely.
It is. Thank you, Hoda. We will share where you guys can all check out Chakra Chai, and don't walk or dilly-dally, go run and receive the blessings from this medicine / functional food, did you say?
Nourishment.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Catalyst Talks. Stay tuned for what's up next, and please subscribe to our podcast and rate us wherever you listen. You'll find these all at catalysttalks.com. Join the conversation on social media, and if you'd like to reach out, please send me, Stephanie, a private message through stephanietrager.com. Your attention means the world to me. Thank you.